What's up, TRAX Nation? Luke here, bringing you guys another walk around video, this time on a 2022 Commander DPS Max 1000R. Before I get into talking about this thing though, I just want to say, watch to the end of this walk around video where I will give you some instructions on how to win some dirt track swag. So you got to stick around to the end to see that, but definitely, hopefully I'll give you enough information that you want to stick around to the end. So what is this thing before we get any further? Well, this is what you have been asking us for quite a while. This is the base model. So I know we always test, or usually test, high-end models, the top of the line or close to it. And I know that they're, in many cases, like $40,000, $50,000 side-by-sides, and those aren't attainable for a lot of people. And I totally understand that because, honestly, they're not attainable for me. I couldn't afford to buy one myself, which is why I have the best job in the world. But you've asked us to test vehicles that are a little bit more realistically affordable for more people. Well, this is the most affordable Commander Max you can get. Maybe the 700 version would be slightly cheaper, but not a lot. So this is it. This is the DPS. It really doesn't have hardly any bells and whistles. In fact, the only bell or whistle it does have is power steering. So that's kind of interesting, and it's been fun for me to test a vehicle that doesn't have everything on it, and to see if it's as good. Is it as fun to ride this as it is to ride the one with smart shocks and aluminum wheels and blah, blah, blah. So that's been interesting. I have tested this already. We've done the full test ride so far, but I'm gonna try and keep my opinions to a minimum and make you wait for that and just give you some information on the vehicle. So let's talk about the vehicle. I mean, obviously I've covered it multiple times now. It is a base model, so it does have steel wheels. It has a set of 27-inch XPS Trail Force tires, and we kind of had a laugh about this the other day, AJ and I, like, these tires work great, but of course they work great. They're a circle of rubber with bumps on it, and most modern ATV tires work great. That's just the truth of the matter. Now, if you buy them for the wrong purpose, they don't, but this is an all-purpose kind of do-everything tire. It's a great tire. The only reason I would say you might want to replace this is to go slightly bigger, but if you're not going to go bigger, don't worry about it. Tires are great. Now, another reason we picked the base model, and this has something to do with wheels and tires, is because AJ's got a full build plan for this thing. We have a real specific purpose for it, and that includes wheels and tires, and it includes things like a roof. So why would we buy the XT model, which is the next model up, that has a roof and aluminum wheels, when we're just gonna take those off, store them in the garage, and put new ones on? It doesn't make sense to spend that money, so we didn't. Speaking about the XT though, this vehicle has, the DPS model has a set of just basic gas charged twin tube shocks that are preload only adjustable with single rate springs. That's also what the XT has. So this vehicle actually doesn't have any kind of downgraded suspension from the XT model. So that's interesting, something to consider. You don't actually get better shocks if you move up to the next level. So that shouldn't be your reason for upgrading. It does have double A-arms front and rear with sway bars, 12 inches of travel in the front, 13 in the back. It has about 12.5 inches of ground clearance, I think, 12.5 to 13. So standard, suspension, but why is this vehicle, the Commander, the new Commander? What makes it so much different than the old Commander? And there's one fundamental reason why. This Commander is built off of a Maverick Sport platform, essentially. So this thing is actually, underneath it all, this is a sport side-by-side. The older Commander was built specifically to be what it was, and it was not sporty. In fact, it was scary to drive fast. This one is not scary to drive fast. This thing's actually excellent to drive fast. So that's what makes this thing a real sport utility side-by-side. Sport underpinnings with utility features, and I really like that. Moving around, we'll talk about the front here. Love it or hate it, that's what looks always are. I don't love it or hate it. I think it looks fine. I just think that without a bush bar, this is very kind of flat and unexciting in here. It really does need something on the front. That's just my opinion. But it is an aggressive look. I do like the look of it overall, so there's no complaints there. Fender flares right here are standard. They do actually an excellent job of keeping crap off of you, and that also is helped out greatly by these awesome doors. These are excellent doors. I talk a lot about doors when we do these walk around videos because they're a big deal, and I think that they're a big deal for multiple reasons. First of all, for safety, of course, keeping you in, for keeping you clean and out of mud, just for aesthetics overall. They make a vehicle look a lot cooler, I think. But you can do doors good and you can do them real not good. These ones are done really well. I like the automotive handles. That's sweet. It's easy to understand. Some of these ones, like the Razor I was testing the other day, with a little button you got to push that's over here, Anybody who you take for a ride doesn't know where that button is. They don't know how to get into it. Handle, just like your car. Door opens, just like your car. It's very simple. If we can get the camera to come around here, the interior of these doors, I think, is what makes them it's what makes them as impressive as they are. They're completely finished on the inside. There's a handle, an armrest. They're not just a skin with a metal frame. So they look very automotive in a way, especially with the handle right here and the release handle up in the front where it should be, right where your arm rests. So that's pretty nice. They have these thick rubber gaskets all the way around that do an okay job of keeping water out, but they definitely keep mud and dust out really, really well. Moving around the vehicle, these are your intakes back here for your CVT and your engine. Air intakes, there's one on each side. They're up high enough that you can bury this thing in water like crazy, and when you watch the test ride we do of it, you're gonna see it very far underwater, and it didn't skip a beat, so that's good. I like that the gas cap is exposed. It's not, you don't have to open the door to get to it like on some vehicles. It's right there. There's no little access panel, easy to get to. So that's a small point, but for me, it means something. One of the, obviously the biggest features of this vehicle that separates it from other Can-Am models is that it is a sport side-by-side, but it has a box, and it's a dumping cargo box, and it's a really big dumping cargo box. It's actually the biggest in its class in terms of volume. It has an excellent one-hand dumping tailgate with these cutout pieces in here for a bed extender. If you get the bed extender, they fold right into these little cutouts, which is really slick. You got all kinds of places here to put in wooden dividers if you want to, D-rings for tie downs right here, link attachment points all the way along here. There's almost nothing you can't do to this box. You can outfit it any way you want, and you're gonna see that in our build. But it's really, really a nice setup. It's a nice box. It can haul 600 pounds. Speaking of hauling, we'll talk about the 2-inch hitch receiver next. Standard 2-inch hitch receiver, so everything you've got for your pickup truck will fit right on there. But here's the number that matters most, okay? This thing can tow 2,000 pounds. That's 500 pounds more than a General. That's a lot. That is shockingly that's a shocking jump up, and it is obviously best in class. So you need to keep that in mind, that this thing is extremely capable when it comes time to do utility stuff. With the box and the towing, you can haul junk with this thing. So anyway, when you put this down though, there's a little hidden feature that a lot of people don't know exists on these vehicles. I'm going to show it to you right now. You pull these little Zeus fasteners off right here, and they actually come right out. And then you simply slide this panel backwards and off, and this is where your spare belt goes. So there's a place for a spare belt. There's a section right in here. I'm not sure what you put in there, but there's something that's supposed to fit right in there that's like meant for this vehicle. And the other side does the same thing. And to put it back on, it's pretty straightforward. You just kind of set it down in here like this, slide it forward, and then you put your Zeus fasteners back in here, and you're cooking with gas. So, you know, the problem of carrying a spare belt, where do you put it in most side-by-sides? And a lot of side-by-sides don't have a dedicated spot for it. This is smart use of dead space right in here. It doesn't look like it from the outside. You would never guess that that would be usable space, but it is. And there's a secondary advantage to that. Let's say you rub against a tree, let's say you smash your bodywork. This panel is easily removable and easily replaceable. So you don't have to worry about unbolting a bunch of crap and, you know, taking apart your box to fix body panels. That's it. That's all you need, and it's really easy to fix. Again, really good fender flares up here. Do a great job of keeping mud off of you, off of the vehicle, and I'm very impressed with how well these work. You can get extensions, but you really don't need them unless you're going to go with wider offset wheels. Dumping cargo bed, as I said before. So hydraulically assisted dumping cargo bed. In terms of access to the motor, it's not spectacular when it's tilted. Like, you can see it in there, and you can probably get to the spark plugs if you had to, but it's not fantastic. The motor does look quite small in there when you compare it to some of its competition, but yeah, in terms of maintenance, this isn't a huge bonus, but it does help. So anyway, there we go. Now let's talk a little bit about interior. This is a Max, it's 4-seater. So obviously if you're buying this thing, you're buying it for the purposes of carrying more people or more cargo. And you can do both. You don't just have to buy one of these to have 4 people in it. You can buy this and stack camping gear in here as much as you want. I'm going to get in so you guys can see. There is a decent amount of space in here for me. I'm 6'1", I have longish legs, and comfortably seated, my knees are just about touching the seats. So this seat can go forward and give me a bit more space. So that's something that you'd have to do if I was in the back. Grab handle is well positioned, easy to use, but it's just bare metal. I don't know why this couldn't have a rubber cover on it or something like that. This piece should have a piece of foam on it and just make it look less like if something was to happen, I'm gonna smash myself off this and it's gonna hurt. Probably that wouldn't even happen. That might not be a problem at all, but it looks like it would be, and I would feel safer if this was covered in foam. Again, small issue, small point, but something I want to talk about and point out. Cup holders down here, little storage cubby here and here. I mean, what are you going to put in there that's not going to fly out, right? But it is in there. And then you've got seat belts, just regular 3 points back here, retractable. And these seats do come out. So if you ever needed to get out, you can, or get them out, you can do that. And then it also allows you to access the motor back here even easier. So when you combine that access with the dumping cargo box, you do get excellent access to the motor, which is really nice. Up front, standard Maverick interior, really. This is the same interior as the Maverick Sport. Pretty much every part of it is identical, but it's the same as all other new Commanders. The seats are comfortable. They're not overly fancy, but they are comfortable, and the driver's seat is adjustable. The passenger seat is adjustable forward and back. The driver's seat is adjustable forward and back, and you've got tilt steering. So you can get it to fit you really well, but one of the things that I find interesting about this is how much legroom there is for driver and passenger. There's a ton of space in here. You do not feel cramped. As a 6'1" person, like myself, I do not feel cramped in here, which is really nice. You've got your standard, Can-Am push button start stop here, your 4x4, 2x4 switch with your rear diff lock unlock for turf mode. The DESS key, digital security system key here. Over here is your light switches, and that's really it. I mean, I said it was pretty bare bones, and it is bare bones. 12-volt outlet up here. Something that's better than most is your storage containers. So this is super deep in here. It has a rubber gasket, but I would never trust that to keep water or mud or dust out. And then you got a little one up here as well that is not at all sealed. But it's nice to have places to put your baseball hat or a cup of Gatorade or whatever you want in here. I wouldn't be storing anything heavy in there, but little stuff that you need quick access to is really nice, and they do a great job of storage on this vehicle. So something nice. Transmission-wise, this transmission shifts fantastic. You got park, reverse, neutral, high and low, but it just shifts exactly how it should. It goes into gear, it doesn't get hung up. It really shifts nice. So that's nice. Can-Ams are all like that. I mean, Mavericks are all, have really nice shifting transmissions. The cup holders here are on the floor for the front seat passengers, and you can see down in here, there's a little drain. We've tested this. We had water right up to here when we were testing it, like right up to the grab handle. And the water drains through the floor really fast when it's full of water. I do, however, also know that if you get it packed full of sand, when you're underwater in sand and this gets filled with sand, the drain holes don't work, so don't get it in sand like that. What else can be said about the interior? Not much. The steering wheel's decent. It's comfortable. As I said, it tilts. Now, one of the big differences between this and the XT, and it's pretty much the only thing you can't upgrade. You can take this vehicle and put all the XT upgraded parts on it and basically make it an XT. You can do that if you want. It's not as cost effective as buying an XT, but you can do it. Or you can put aftermarket parts on to make it like an XT, but with aftermarket parts. But the one thing you can't really change is the gauge. The XT has the 7-inch gauge, the bigger one. This one has the 4.5-inch gauge. But truthfully, this gauge works just fine. I have no complaints about it. It has all the information I need. It actually fits between the steering wheel spokes better than the bigger gauge. And once you know where the information is on the gauge, you know where to look for it, you don't need it to be any bigger. It's big enough. So it has all the information you need. It's easy enough to read. It's not really, in my opinion, a reason to buy an XT over the DPS model. If you were going to add your own roof and wheels and other stuff that the XT has, and you're like, ah, crap, but it doesn't have the nice gauge, don't even worry about it. Just buy this one and put your parts on it, is my opinion. So that's something to consider. And something I was quite surprised about. I thought the gauge would suck, and it definitely does not. Roll cage on this vehicle is nice. It's the newer style where if you put full doors on it, they're inset. The windshield insets right into the frame. The rear window does the same thing, pre-drilled and hooked up for, you know, roof mounts, and a rear view mirror and all that kind of stuff is already in there with cutouts in the actual roll bar for your wiring to run down through the roll bar, which is slick. And it looks really nice. I like the shape of it. It's got lots of space. I do hit my head when I get in. When I'm wearing a helmet and I go to climb in, I'm always hitting my head. It's not a big issue. I would get used to that if I owned a vehicle, but if you're 6'1" like me, you're gonna have to get used to ducking, so something to think about. What else can be said? I mean, this thing has the Visco lock front diff, you know, shiftable 4x4 with a locking and unlocking rear diff for working around the yard. Everything about this thing is just as good as the more expensive XT model, in my opinion. The only time I would suggest upgrading from this, if you're going to put your own parts on, there's two scenarios. You're a person who buys a side-by-side, doesn't want to modify it, just wants to buy it and drive it, buy the XT, because you will appreciate the bigger tires and wheels and aluminum wheels. You'll appreciate having other features like the roof, so buy the XT. But if you're the kind of person who knows, I'm going to buy a side-by-side and I'm going to go buy wheels like most people do, why would you buy the XT? Buy this, save yourself the money, and buy the XT, and then use that money, or buy this one over the XT and then use that extra money you saved to buy the accessories the way you want them. The only time I would say upgrade is if you're going to go to the next model up, like the limited model, the high-end special edition model, because it has stuff on it you simply can't put on the vehicle. It has extra stuff that's going to cost a fortune. So it has parts on it that would cost more to upgrade than the cost of going to the next size, the next level vehicle. So if you're going above an XT, go above the XT. If you're going to buy an XT but you want to buy wheels and tires anyway, buy the DPS instead and put your own wheels and tires on it. That's my suggestion. We have a full review of this thing coming up. We put it through its paces. We got filled with people and stuff and water and mud and high speed. So actually that's something I didn't talk about yet. Before I finish this, we have to talk about the motor. I'm just going to be perfectly honest here. The motor is the most disappointing thing about this vehicle. It's not that it's a bad motor, don't get me wrong. It works just fine. It's the same motor that's in a Maverick Sport, but in this vehicle it's been tuned differently, or it feels like it's been tuned or clutched or something differently, because when you step on the throttle, it doesn't get up and go like a Maverick does or like a General does. It just feels very sluggish, and it's a shame because the motor, we all know, is great. I've tested lots of Mavericks with this motor and it's awesome. The 100 horsepower version is great, but in this thing, whatever they've done to it to make it maybe more livable for passengers or a little bit smoother for the trail rider, the sport utility kind of person who's going to be working with it, it's really just, in my opinion, hurt the performance of the vehicle, and it makes it feel less exciting to drive, and that's too bad. So that is something to think about. As I said, it's not a make or break, because the rest of the vehicle is excellent, and certainly people who are buying this type of vehicle are less interested or put less weight on a high performance motor than a lot of the other features that it has. But it is something to consider, and I do want to be completely transparent with you guys and honest. So there you go, that's my honesty. Now, I promised at the beginning of this walk around that if you stuck around to the end, I would give you some instructions on how to win some swag. So here's how you do it. Comment to me whether you think it's smarter to buy the DPS and add your accessories, or buy the XT that already comes with them. Which do you think is actually the better idea, and why? So make sure you comment that underneath the video here, and we'll go through and randomly select one comment, and you will win a swag pack of TRAX gear. So we appreciate it. We always like your comments. We do read them. I respond personally to as many as I can. I actually respond from my personal YouTube account to as many comments as I can. Keep them constructive, keep them, you know, at least reasonably positive, and make sure you turn the bell on so you get notified of more videos. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on stuff. We got lots of stuff coming pretty regularly now throughout these warmer months. And yeah, hopefully you guys appreciated this. Hopefully you learned something, and stay tuned for the bigger test ride that's coming up, and we'll see you guys on the next one.